All right, let's talk about quadratic equations. So the things that we're going to cover today: definition of quadratic equations, then solving quadratic equations using factoring and the quadratic formula, and then finally solving simultaneous equations. So first, this definition of a quadratic equation is a polynomial equation of the second degree. In other words, it is an equation with multiple numbers, thus polynomial, and includes a power of 2, like x squared, as the highest exponent. So there's an example. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are all numbers, and a cannot equal 0. This is also the standard form of a quadratic equation. We'll get into why this is important later, but that's what they look like. So here's an example of the quadratic equation. X squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. So in this equation, you can see a equals 1, b equals 1, and c equals -6. So why do we care about quadratic equations? Because this is the format almost always asked about on the DAT, and you need to know how to solve for x. There are two different ways to solve for x. Let's talk about both. The first way to solve for x is with factoring. Generally, factoring is the faster of the two methods and often requires less math than the next option that we're going to talk about in a second. If you don't know how to factor well, then go check out my other video on factoring and get a lot of practice in. But whenever possible, if you can do factoring, then that's the faster way to do it for sure. The second way to solve a quadratic equation is to use the quadratic formula. So as you can see there, this quadratic formula is x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this is definitely something you want to memorize, and you need to know how to use it, how to solve quadratic equations with it. As a reminder, when factoring for this example, we are trying to figure out what two numbers can be multiplied together to get -6, and what two numbers can be added together to get 1. So like I was kind of alluding to earlier, I have a whole nother video on factoring, but just as a reminder, when solving problems with factoring, we're looking at that -6, and we want to figure out which two numbers can be multiplied together to give us -6, and also those same two numbers can be added together to give us +1, with that +1 coming from the x, the 1x. So here it is, x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0 can be factored into x plus 3x minus 2. And really with factoring, it's all about repetition. So just try to get as much repetition in as you can, and it will get easier and easier with time. The more factoring practice that you do, the better you will be at recognizing what numbers to use. Ideally, this part doesn't take more than about 5 seconds, maybe 10, to figure out how to factor. Then you set each part equal to 0 and solve it. So for this one, we're going to set x plus 3 equal to 0 and also x minus 2 equal to 0. And when we do that, you'll see that x plus 3 equals 0 just becomes x equals -3, and x minus 2 equals 0 just becomes x equals 2. And there you go. So those are our two answers. Now let's say that you couldn't figure out how to factor this thing. You can still use the second option, the quadratic formula. It just takes a little longer. As a side note, there could definitely be an equation that you can't factor easily, and so you're going to have to use the quadratic formula anyways. That might just be what they're trying to test you on that time for that question. So never feel bad about needing to use the quadratic equation. Just commit to it quickly. So let's talk about the quadratic formula. Again, here's the image. Again, here's the quadratic formula, -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The first thing you need to know when using the quadratic formula is what each letter is or where it comes from. And so that's why the standard formula is important for ax squared plus bx plus c, because there's the numbers that you plug in to the quadratic formula. A is right at the beginning, b in the middle, c at the end. And so having the equation in this format gives us the correct numbers, a, b, and c, to plug into the quadratic formula. So for this one that we've already talked about, x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0, what are the letters a, b, and c? Hopefully you can see a is 1, b is 1, and c is -6. We already talked about this in the video, so hopefully that wasn't a tricky one, and you were paying attention earlier. The big thing on this, I suppose, would be that c is not equal to 6, it's equal to -6. So watch those signs as well to make sure we're not missing a negative sign in there somewhere. So let's use the quadratic equation now to solve for x. So here's the first step, just plug in the numbers. you can see it becomes -1 plus or minus 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times -6 all over 2 times 1. Now let's simplify it. -1 plus or minus the square root of 1 plus 24 all over 2, which then becomes -1 plus or minus the square root of 25 over 2. And this brings up a good note. Square roots. We should be confident with the squares all the way up through 12. So, for example, the square root of 144 is 12. The square root of 121 is 11. So you should know that for each thing down, 12, 11, 10, 9, all the way down to 1, where you just look at it and you have it memorized. But anyway, so now this is -1 plus or minus the square root of 25 divided by 2, which becomes 5. And then doing plus or minus, hopefully you've seen plus or minus signs before. The plus or minus means that they're going to get two different answers. First you do it with plus, then you do it with minus. So here's your two answers. The first one gives you 4 over 2, which equals 2, and the next one gives you -6 over 2, which is -3. So if you compare the answers that we did earlier in the video already to these answers, surprise, they're the same. That's how math works. So you can do it either way. This one just takes more time, it's more math. So you can factor, that's the better option. And there you go again, just showing that this is when we factored earlier, we ended with the same answers. All right, here's 3 practice questions. Solve each of them if you can with factoring, and then also with the quadratic equation. You may not be able to do all of them with factoring, and that's okay, but just try them out and see what you can do. Also, important note is that I'm not going to be showing the step-by-step answers here. I'm just going to show you the final answer. So make sure you go through them, do it both ways, with factoring and with the quadratic formula. Here's your answer. Make sure you understand how to do all of these, and also keep in mind that you can always practice by just making up your own practice problems. Throw it into ChatGPT, throw it into some other AI program. Ask it to give you quadratic equations that you can practice factoring on, or just come up with them on your own. All right, solving simultaneous equations. Last section here. Sometimes you'll be given 2 equations and be asked to solve for 2 variables like x and y. Like the example here, it says if 4x plus 3y equals 8 and x plus y equals 3, then what are the values of x and y? So to solve equations like this, you just need to combine the equations in such a way that one of the variables will cancel out. Meaning that I take the entire equation, 4x plus 3y equals 8, and add the entire equation, x plus y equals 3. And I'll show you what that means in a second here. But the goal is to eliminate one of the letters. So for this problem specifically, I would probably just take that second equation, multiply the whole thing by -3 to make it -3x minus 3y equals 9, with the intent that when I add that, we have a positive 3y in the first equation and a negative 3y in the second equation. So you'll get rid of y entirely. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I took the second equation, x plus y equals 3, and multiplied each thing by -3 to give me -3x minus 3y equals -9. The goal was to add the 2 equations together to eliminate one of the variables, either x or y. So to do that, I took that second equation and manipulated it so that I could add it to that first equation and get rid of the y's. As a side note, you could have also multiplied that second equation by -4 and got rid of the x's, and then you'll solve for y. Both answers are fine, I just chose to get rid of the y's. So this is what I'm talking about. 4x plus 3y equals 8, plus the entire second equation of -3x minus 3y equals -9. And when you add each of those together, you get x, technically plus 0, equals -1, or just x equals -1. Then you can see x plus y equals 3. We plug in now that x, -1 plus y equals 3. And when you solve that, y equals 4. So there you go, there's your answer. X equals -1, y equals 4. All right, so here's the next level for this kind of stuff, is when it's asking you for a equation at the end. So like, for example here, it says 2x minus 9y equals 11, and x plus 12y equals -8. What is the value of x plus y? So it's not asking me what is x, what is y, it's asking me what is x plus y. Now, you could go through this and solve it the exact same way. Solve for x, then solve for y, and just add the numbers together. And a lot of people will do that, but it just takes a little bit longer to do it that way. So I want to show you the next level up, that sometimes you can take a shortcut. So to start off, I just add the two equations together. We got 2x minus 9y equals 11 plus the whole second equation of x plus 12y equals negative 8. And that becomes 3x plus 3y equals 3. And remember, our end goal is to solve for x plus y. So I can see here, if I just divide this last equation by 3, I will get x plus y equals 1, as you see there. So now there's our answer. What is the value of x plus y? It's 1. So I didn't even need to solve for x and then y. I didn't need to manipulate the equations. This was just a convenient, quick way to solve it that you can sometimes do if you recognize it. Now, you could still have gone through and solved the problem for x and then solved for y by manipulating the equations and doing what we just did in the last practice problem. But if you can identify the shortcut like this, then you'll be cruising. Here's your summary slide. Take a picture, and I'll see you in the next one.